Dan Mandis here along with Johnny B. Ken Weaver. Want to welcome into the program Jonathan Fahey, former director of ICE, a federal prosecutor as well for many years. And we've been speaking to you many times now regarding the ins and outs of the hush money trial going on in New York City of Donald Trump. So yesterday, Jonathan, Michael Cohen, of course, Donald Trump's fixer, took the stand. And this is a guy, you and I have well established this, that he is known as a chronic and serial liar and perjurer. Johnny actually asked me the question off the air. I'll ask you on there. Do you think anybody buys his testimony?
I don't know. I don't think so, or I hope not, but I don't know about what this New York jury is thinking and how it's coming across. But, you know, I don't know that they've heard all of the baggage yet, meaning all of his previous lies, convictions, and things like that will come out across. So even if there is an air of believability now, I think it will be diminished. But everything you hear about him and from him really shows that, you know, he's always been scheming out for himself. I mean, I think the biggest reveal yesterday, which I had heard about before, but the fact he was secretly recording Donald Trump, who was his client at that point, just shows his motivation from the very, I don't know, let's say the very beginning, but for a long time has been only for himself. Because why do you record a client? You know, it's not only unethical, it just seems very unusual and devious. So, you know, I hope people don't buy it. And it seems to me the other thing that's interesting, you know, as we know, the case isn't about whether or not they can do an NDA or whether or not NDAs are legal, because they are. It's just how the entry for the payment was put in the books of the Trump organization, whether or not they listed as a legal expense, and whether or not Donald Trump knew about it or not. And it seems like the only witness they have that I'm aware of is Michael Cohen to say Donald Trump had anything to do with the entry of in the bookkeeping, which doesn't really make any sense that Donald Trump would be involved in that type of stuff anyway. So the case every day, at least in my view, seems weaker for the government, and also is like, you know, the questions we had at the beginning of like, why is this even in court? Why are they charging this? This is never done before. This is all political. Everything has come out to really indicate all of those concerns were well justified, and it's even worse than I think most people expected.
One of the things I've got a couple of questions. Number one, as far as the tape recording goes, it's about a 3-minute conversation. And from what I understand, it's Cohen and Trump talking about how to basically make this go away. But from what I'm read, I don't see anything in this tape where Donald Trump is admitting that this is for his political career. And by all accounts, the people that know Donald Trump, it was to, you know, make this go away because he's a married man and, you know, $150,000 or whatever it was, you know, isn't really all that much money in the overall scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was David Pecker who testified. I think that was his first name, but that this is fairly common in the sort of the celebrity industry. People are, you know, entering these types of things for, you know, various reasons. And Hope Hicks testified, by my recollection of what people have said about what she said, was that she, you know, that he was doing this because he was concerned about his family and because of Melania. So, you know, this idea that, one, he was involved in the bookkeeping entry at all, and two, that it was for the election is not consistent with what other people other than Michael Cohen seem to have said, and also what, you know, he had done in the past, or what had been done in the past and with other people. So, you know, this whole thing seems so beyond far-fetched. And, you know, the fact that the government, meaning the Alvin Bragg's office, isn't even clear about what they're trying to charge, what this related crime is, just shows not only an inherent weakness in their case, but also, you know, certainly not the highest of, you know, ethical standards where you would expect a criminal defendant should know what they're facing. So everything about this really stinks to high heaven, and, you know, all of our worst fears are coming true with the fact, you know, when every day unfolds.
Let me ask you, because with David Pecker, he's a former, I guess, publisher of the National Enquirer, and it's this whole notion of catch and kill, where they buy the story with no real intention of publishing it. okay, this may be a dumb question. Is that illegal? Because no one is actually, if they're getting their money, Karen McDonough, for example, the Playboy playmate. So she gets $150,000 for the story of her having an affair with Donald Trump. She gives the story to David Pecker in the National Enquirer. Isn't that then their choice as to what they do with it? I mean, they're not under any obligation to print it, are they?
Exactly. Yeah, they don't have to print it. There's nothing illegal about it. And even if the idea wasn't sort of a catch and kill, meaning just buy it just to bury it, I'm sure there are times in the media, and you would know this, that maybe they do buy exclusive rights to a story, and then it isn't interesting later on once they have it or some other news event overtakes and they don't publish it also. So, there are probably many times this is done and no one hears about it just because other news overtook the events of the day. So, there's nothing illegal about it. You could argue maybe it's wrong, unethical, but to the extent that it is, Donald Trump is really the victim here of all of these people that are just trying to shake him down for money everywhere he turns around, including his own lawyers seems to have ulterior motives in dealing with him, which is, shameful in so many respects.
Former Director of ICE Jonathan Fahey is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline talking about the hush money trial of Donald Trump. So one of the things that watching the headlines, a lot of media are reporting that today's cross-examination of Michael Cohen is going to be really, really tough. Is it going to be easy to break this guy? He knows how to handle himself on a witness stand.
I think, that's actually a good point. This guy is probably good in the spotlight under pressure because he's done it so long. But I think the problem he has, I think, the two problems he has, the way I see it, is one, has a history of not telling the truth, just outright lying, and he's also had a history of lying under oath. So that normally in the government you would say, well, they may have lied before, but now that they're under oath, they see how serious it is, so you should believe them now. That would be the type of argument or the inference they'd want people to draw. So that goes out the window because he lies under oath and he lies repeatedly and it does everything in his self-interest. But I think the worst thing for him is that I see are the dual motivations to that show his bias. One, he clearly has it out for Donald Trump. He has these, I think, tweets that have pictures of Donald Trump in an orange jumpsuit. He wants to harm Donald Trump. He's bitter because he didn't get appointments and things like that. So he has it out for the guy he's testifying against. And then two, he has this other ulterior motive, which if Donald Trump's convicted based on his testimony, he's going to be elevated in certain circles as the guy that brought down Donald Trump. So that will help him financially, and also he seems to want a lot of fame and notoriety. So that will help him. So he has two motivations basically to bring down Donald Trump. One is selfish, to boost him up. Two, he just wants to harm Donald Trump for vindictive reasons. Yeah. And then you pile all the prior lying and deceit and recording your client, and he's been disbarred. It's just a complete disaster, and the defense wants to be able to, they'll certainly point all these things out, but then they want to ultimately argue the government's case rests solely on Michael Cohen's testimony, and you have to believe all of these things to convict Donald Trump from a guy that's done all of these bad things. So it's a very strong position for the defense. So I do think he probably, in some respects, might handle himself well, but the vulnerabilities are just profound, and I think it's going to be a very bad day for the state. And, after this, what's left of their case, I don't know, because they want to be able to argue, well, Cohen said this, but you don't have to just believe Cohen. You could corroborate it with this document or this witness or this or that, but they don't seem to have that, at least as far as I know, to have somebody else or some other thing to say, hey, you don't have to believe Cohen, read this or read this email. But I don't see that, at least so far.
I said earlier, Jonathan, Donald Trump keeps saying, well, this is, they're trying to manipulate the election and these other things. And I think that he's actually right. They are manipulating the election, but it's having the complete opposite effect. Every day that goes by, you see the polling for Donald Trump go higher, and the polling for Joe Biden is either remaining stagnant or going down. And so it does seem like they are manipulating the election, but it is having the exact opposite effect.
Yeah, this may be a bridge too far for so many voters, because I think anyone following this other than at the most casual level can see that this whole thing is a fraud. This case should have never been brought. So I do think that's right. And you see those polls, and some of the polls are particularly, I think it was a New York Times Siena poll, which, not only is Trump leading in all of the swing or battleground states, but he's hitting the numbers that they don't like to see, which are these 49 and 50%, which, normally at this stage, the polls will be 44, 42 with a whole bunch of undecided. So it's hard to get the 50% to get people to flip back to Joe Biden. So I think that's a real concern. And again, they may have been taking this too far. And the other thing is, every day Trump looks strong because he comes out and he's fighting. And one of Biden's, among his many vulnerabilities, people see him as weak, which is deservedly so, and sort of inept and incompetent. So this shows Donald Trump is strong, is able to handle this trial and still campaign. And Joe Biden, a big achievement is, again, like walking across the lawn or giving some 5-minute speech that someone else wrote for him. Right. So I think it really just shows a contrast that, Biden's weakness is amplified, because if he was a strong candidate with a strong record, he wouldn't want Donald Trump to be on trial. He'd want to be talking about his record, but he can't. So he's in a trick bag, because everywhere he turns with this thing, he loses, because if he focuses on the issues, he loses. Now focusing on Donald Trump is, his best chance, and that seems to be backfiring. So it's almost like, where do you go? Does he talk about this fantastic running mate he has? Like, he has nowhere to go with this thing.
What's interesting too, Jonathan, last question here. In the news, we're reporting, and it's out there, that all of a sudden you've got all of these potential VP candidates that are sitting in the courtroom with Donald Trump. There's Vivek Ramaswamy, Doug Burgum, and some others. I find this interesting. I mean, is this sort of like a litmus test? If you can stay awake during all of this, you're going to be considered as a VP?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you can tolerate it. But it is nice to see this show of support, because I think, I don't know how it will affect a jury, but it does show that, hey, he's not alone in this. People support him, and these are, people that are very credible in whatever whatever area they are, whether it's business, whether politics or whatever, and they're willing to basically stand by him. And basically the message is, this is a sham trial. Yeah. And I think that, that shows, and I think it's helpful, and it certainly shows him, but I think it shows everyone else. No one thinks this thing's legitimate, because people are essentially putting their credibility on the line to sit in this trial, and they're more than willing to do it with great enthusiasm, and they should be. Yeah, Mike Johnson is going to be there today. Always appreciate having you on. Jonathan Fahey will check in with you later on this week. Have a great rest of day. It is 7:52.